Hello and welcome to Where to Go. I'm James Atkinson, Senior Brand Manager at DK Eyewitness.
And I'm Lucy Richards, Senior Editor at DK Eyewitness.
And welcome to Where to Go, where every fortnight we find out more about the world's favourite travel destinations with the people who know those places best. And today, Lucy, where are we?
We're going to Egypt, James.
Yes, it's really, really exciting. We haven't been to Egypt before in the pod.
No.
Have you been to Egypt, Lucy? This is the big question.
No, I never have. And I don't think you have.
No, I haven't. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with ancient Egypt, with all things kind of like Egyptology. And I think I've said on the podcast before, my family used to go to Greece all the time. We went to various Greek islands. And I was always like pushing in the pages of the travel brochures to go to Egypt, and for some reason we never went. And actually I do remember going to, I think, Rhodes, and my auntie and uncle taking a crazy day trip to Cairo, which is quite a wild thing to do.
Wow.
And feeling extremely jealous. And they did like the sort of like the tourist trail of Cairo and a bit of the pyramids and stuff in a day, and came back completely shattered. And I remember just being really, really jealous as a child. So I've always been fascinated, but I do know there's more to Egypt than just that kind of touristy trail as well. Like everyone knows about the amazing history, and
that's it, isn't it? I think Egypt is one of those places that we immediately think of ancient Egypt, when actually, you know, it's a modern country. Cairo is a modern city. I think our guest today is going to show us a very different side to the country and kind of lift the mask on what we all think we know about it.
Absolutely, and take us just away from that kind of, celebrate the history, but also show a different side to Egypt. So, Lucy, who is our guest?
Today we have Monica Gerges joining us. Egyptian-Canadian writer Monica Gerges lived in Cairo, where she began the Foreign Local podcast, A Must Listen, and she's currently working with us on the update of DK Eyewitness Egypt, which is published in 2024. So hello, Monica.
Hello.
Hello, Monica.
Welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So, as usual, we're going to begin with learning a little bit more about our guest, Monica, followed by her all-important recommendations on where to go and insider knowledge of Egypt. Then we'll hear about upcoming exciting events and ways to make the most positive impact when you visit.
So Monica, you lived in Canada, I think, for 20 years before you decided to book a one-way flight to Cairo. What drove that decision?
So I'm actually Egyptian Canadian. We immigrated in 96, and I grew up as part of the Egyptian diaspora community. And Egypt always kind of felt like homey to me whenever I'd come visit, and people would be like, oh, but you only like it because you go there on vacation. You don't have to deal with like the grit of everyday life. And it does get a little gritty. So I guess I kind of wanted to earn my stripes a little bit and prove the Egyptian-ness. Yeah. And so I just started looking for job opportunities here, and I came across something that was a perfect fit for me. I was a copy editor, and there was an online publication looking for a copy editor. So I shot out an email, and 8 days later, I was on a one-way flight.
Amazing.
Cool.
Oof.
Yeah.
It's a very big step. How did you find settling into the city?
So I was familiar enough with it for me to kind of know my way around. There weren't any of the expected culture shocks because a lot of people were like, oh, you're not going to be able to handle what everyday life looks like. I think my culture shock was actually kind of reversed.
Okay.
In terms of how I settled in, because I came in expecting, you know, when I come on vacations, I'd hang out with my cousins. And so just the day-to-day life of like family vacation mode. And then when I showed up, I wasn't really plugged into like the media industry and like the equivalent of like Crazy Rich Asians over here. And that's what I got tossed into when I plugged into like work and the media industry. And so that's where I found myself when I got here. And it took a while to adjust to there being many sides to the Rubik's Cube that is Egypt. And they're all Egypt just the same. So that was probably the most challenging portion for me when it came to settling in.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably an impossible question, Monica, but what is it that you love so much about living in Cairo? I mean, we're going to go into some of the nitty-gritties, but can you kind of capture what makes the city so special for you?
Absolute sheer chaos.
Okay.
I like your honesty.
I mean, I guess I thrive in the chaos.
Yeah, chaos can be good.
Cairo is the city that never sleeps. It really can. It's like, it's almost poetic chaos or organized chaos. Like there's a rhythm to the chaos. And that brings a certain type of life that's such a stark contrast to the greater Toronto area where I grew up. And so like this city is always on. They tried to get it to take a nap during the pandemic, and then it's always alive. People everywhere, and people are genuinely super friendly and warm for the most part. So that sense of like warm, poetic chaos, it breathes life to my soul, I love it.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Well, let's hear a little bit more about that chaos and some of your favorite recommendations. To kick things off, Monica, we're going to ask you to give us a quick fire tour of Cairo. So we're going to name a few categories and you have to suggest just one thing to do. Are you ready?
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Absolutely. So we're going to start off with your favorite view.
Sunset from atop of Bebzuela Minaret in Islamic Cairo. Super specific, beautiful.
Oh, lovely. Tell us a bit more about the view. I'm more forgiving than James. You can give a bit more detail with me.
I was trying to be quick about it, but all right, let's do this.
I know, thank you. I appreciate your efficiency, but yeah, tell us a bit more about it.
So you actually get, if you climb up the minaret, you get a view of all of Islamic Cairo, and you can see over to Mu'attam Mountain. You can catch a glimpse of the pyramids, and if you look for specific details, like you could see bits of the Nile, it is stunning, and it's so layered. It's beautiful.
That sounds incredible. Yes, sold. I'd love to do that.
Come visit. Let's do it.
I'm going to jump to the big one. Your favourite thing to eat, Monica?
There are so many options, but stuffed grape leaves are my favorite thing in the world.
Ah.
They're so good.
Wow.
They're so good.
What are they stuffed with?
So it's a rice mix. So it's a rice and almost, not veggie mix, but rice and herb mix. Sometimes people will put a little bit of meat in it. Sometimes they won't. In Egypt, it's served hot. And elsewhere in the Middle East, it's served cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Delicious. Oof, very, very nice. And your favorite thing to drink, Monica?
Cold karkade. And karkade is the Arabic word for hibiscus.
Ooh.
Oh, yes,
Which you can pick up from Aswan. It's incredible, but it's also just served anywhere, any of the coffee shops. So served hot and cold, but I prefer cold.
Oh, that sounds really refreshing.
It is,
Yes, I'd love one of
absolutely.
those. Thank you very much. And then, Monica, your favourite day activity?
I'm a walker. So strolling through any of the streets in the more historic areas of the core, so whether it's Islamic Cairo or downtown or Heliopolis, there's so much to take in if you look up.
Nice.
Sounds good. And we're almost there. This is a very, very quick fire round. Your favorite museum or gallery?
I am not a museum person. I need to confess. I am truly not. However.
That's absolutely fine. Not all people are.
Okay.
But,
I need to call my bias. I live in Egypt and I'm not a museum and history person. I know. But the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization is actually really cool. It has mummies, but it's also really cool in terms of like its setup and the view and how it's curated. So I'll give a nod to that one.
Cool. Great answer.
that was a very, very quick fire round, Monica. That was excellent.
It was efficient and inspiring. Thank you very much. Hibiscus sounds delicious. I would love icy hibiscus right now.
That does sound very, very
so
good.
good.
It's true.
Nice. So, Monica, obviously, I know you're working on DK Witness Egypt right now. What are some sort of highlights that visitors really shouldn't miss when they visit? Sort of the absolute must-dos in your mind.
I mean, beyond the pyramids, because they're the pyramids, that's the given. Beyond that, I think if you head to the tomb of Nefertari in the Valley of the Queens, down in Luxor, that is one of the most well-preserved tombs. It's got a bit of an expensive entry fee, but totally well worth it because it's so well-preserved, it's so well-maintained, and there's a sense of like, almost, I don't want to use the word grand, but there's something very grand, and it reminds you of just how small you are in light of the immense history of this country, if that makes any sense. It's overwhelming in that regard. So it's definitely one of the ones that are worth seeing. Luxor as a whole is just a giant open air walk through history, which is definitely one of the places that you have to be.
Excellent.
Cool. Sounds amazing. It sounds very humbling, actually.
That's a very good word choice. I will take humbling over grand any day. It is a very humbling experience.
So visitors should definitely go and visit some of these tombs.
Absolutely.
And explore them. Yeah, okay.
And are there any other sort of highlights that visitors shouldn't miss around Egypt as well? Anything broadening it out a bit further?
So on the polar opposite side, if you're more of like an aquatic person, I'm more of a water person. I love going swimming. However, in Hurghada, there's a place called Mahmeya Island. And Mahmeya Island, I've heard it put this way, it's like swimming inside a screensaver.
Okay.
It's beautiful. You can go snorkeling. I believe you can also go diving and just swimming straight through it. The water is incredibly clear. There is so much going on under the water that it's a whole experience in and of itself. You can also like hop on boats, take boat tours, hop on a yacht, spend the day, etc. There's a lot to do, but there's also so much to experience under the water that you probably won't want to be above the water anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is below the water? I'm curious. I'm just lots of
so
fish.
you've got you've got a lot of really cool corals. So Egypt has a lot of spots that are rated as top diving spots worldwide. And the Red Sea is definitely up there. So some of the best diving experiences you can have in terms of the type of underwater life that you see and how well preserved it is and how well they take care of that and like keep it alive, essentially. It's stunning, and it's also a little bit overwhelming in all the good ways. It's overwhelming to just take all of that in. There's a whole it's a whole other world under the sea, and Mahmeh is a really good spot to check that out.
Lovely. Okay, can't miss that. And can you tell us about some hidden gems in Egypt that listeners might not know about yet?
My absolute favorite is an oasis in the western desert, kind of close to Libya. It's called Siwa Oasis. And Siwa is also known as the Sunset Oasis because as much as the Bebzuela sunset is stunning, Siwa's sunsets are just something completely different. Siwa is, just by virtue of it being an oasis, it's still held on to so much of its culture, just in terms of the Siwan people, and they're, I believe they're from Amazigh tribes, and they've retained so much of their culture, and the experience as a whole is very warm and welcoming, but it's very serene, very quiet. There are mountains, and there are also really cool hot springs, cold springs, salt lakes to swim in, which you kind of just float straight through. Really good also for pictures. And there's also, you can safari through the Great Sand Sea. There's also like fossils that you could check out over there. There's a lot to do, but it's also very serene, and it's a very remote area. So it's a nice combination of two things that you normally don't get together. So definitely one of my favorite spots to be.
And also, you talked about the chaos. It sounds like the sort of absolute opposite.
It really is. There is zero chaos in Siwa, and yet I love it. So that tells you how incredible it is.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it seems like sort of a land of contrasts, really.
Yeah, that's a very great way to put it.
Any other sort of hidden gems, Monica? You might want to keep them all to yourself.
I am very inclined to do so, but I'll share some with you.
Thank
Just
you.
a couple. Similar concept, but on the polar opposite side of the country, you have Hesa Island in Aswan, or in the Nubian area. Easily some of the most friendly humans I've encountered in this country, in Hesa and in Aswan, and also in Siwa. So I think that's my go-to. I like good people.
Yeah.
I like good people in beautiful places. So Hesa has, honestly, colorful houses, beautiful views. It's also serene. It's an island surrounded by the Nile, surrounded by greenery, and just calm.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of people who frequent Hesa, but it really adds to the homey feel, especially if you're coming in as a visitor. You kind of get brought into people's homes and you get invited into the experience that is their lives. And that itself, as a way of interacting with local culture, is really eye-opening.
We're going to talk a bit about communities in the next section of the podcast, but it strikes me that there is a community feel in Egypt that, as you say, people are welcoming. And is that a fair representation, Monica?
I'm a big fan of talking to strangers, so this might partially be me. People are super warm. They are very welcoming, and you get it more so in the smaller towns and rural areas than you do in the big city. Yeah. Cairo is a big city. Alexandria is a big city, and so people are friendly, but it's not as warm and communal as Siwa, as Aswan and Luxor. However, it's really easy to connect with locals.
Yes.
People are welcoming, and people are gracious towards foreigners who are willing to engage them and their culture, as opposed to kind of, stiff arm them.
Yes, that makes complete sense.
I was going to say, because traditionally, and lots of like kind of foreigners have come to Egypt to see sort of two things. So there's kind of beaches in the Mediterranean, kind of packagey holiday, and then there's also obviously the kind of like the tombs and seeing all the amazing kind of ancient artifacts and seeing Cairo, etc. But actually, there's quite a lot to be said there about going out and exploring quite a huge country.
Yes, there's a lot beyond the traditional. So, for example, there's a locally owned food tour company. They're the first food tour company in Egypt. Their name is Bellies en Route. And these guys do food tours where they walk you through downtown and you get to experience the food and get to understand the history of the space. Yeah. But also you connect with the local vendors, you connect with the restaurant owners, you get to be part of the process and part of the experience. And so I guess that kind of ties into the hidden gems a little bit as well, because these guys are, in my eyes, they are a hidden gem because they connect you with the community that you are experiencing in a way that is very authentic. And so there are things beyond, going to the beach and having that entire all-inclusive sort of experience and the historic side. There's the people side, there's the cuisine side, there's the adventure side. There's a lot more to the country.
Yeah.
You just touched on the adventure side there a little bit, and we've sort of discussed quite a few outdoorsy places and lots of green places as well, but it's definitely the place for adventure and epic journeys. What are some of the best that you can kind of take?
So, like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of talking to strangers. Those are some of the best adventures that you can have. But if you want to, I guess, take a more traditional route at adventure, Egypt honestly has incredible trails for people who are into hiking and climbing and stuff. There will be no climbing of the pyramids. Take that from me. Do not do it. It does not end well. But you've got the Sinai Trail, you've got the Red Sea Mountain Trail, and these are two sister trails along with the Wadi Rum Trail in Jordan. Okay. And they're all connected as part of a bigger picture project called I believe the Bedouin Trail. These are all like grassroots local Bedouin community work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're really cool experiences. Something like the Sinai Trail, for example, it's Egypt's first long distance hike, and it takes, I believe, 50 something days to do and is about 500 something kilometers. Mm-hmm. First of all, it runs through the lands of 8 different Bedouin tribes in the Sinai. And it's run and operated by these tribes. It's operated by the Sinai Trail, like the entity itself, but it's made up of and run by these tribes. And so you get to really connect with them, but you're also doing so while running through like canyons and valleys, or going through sandy plains, or climbing some of the most iconic mountains like Mountain Catherine. And so if you're looking for adventure in that regard, this is definitely one of the experiences that I enjoyed and definitely recommend, just in a very well-rounded way. Like they touch on so many things, and it's adventure and it's people and it's the outdoors, and you can do portions of it, not the entire through trail. So you could pick which portions. So that's definitely up there as a recommended experience for adventure.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, it really does.
It really is.
I was just going to say, if you don't have 50 days to spare, if you only had a week, what sections would you recommend, Monica?
I am not knowledgeable enough on all the sections because it is very thorough and very detailed, and I do not want to get it wrong. However, the Sinai Trail's website and the Red Sea Mountain Trail website do such an incredible job of just informing people what the different sections are, how long they take, and what to expect, whether in terms of physical exhaustion. I'm going to use the word exhaustion because that's me. I don't exhaust easily. But physical exertion, for lack of better terms, but also what to expect in terms of scenery and experience. So their websites, the Sinai Trail and the Red Sea Mountain Trail, do a phenomenal job of recommending, far better than I could.
But Monica, it does sound absolutely amazing. As you say, that combination of landscape and people, it's like the perfect sort of travel experience.
Absolutely. I think you've done an amazing job of showing us quite a different side of Egypt than what I expected.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
So let's move on to a little bit about what's going on right now in Egypt and some of the best times to visit. Hello Where to Go listeners, it's James here. It's coming up to Christmas, and what greater gift could there possibly be than the promise of future adventures? So we've teamed up with our friends at WHSmith for a very special offer. Until the 7th of January you can get 20% off any DK Eyewitness travel guide, including all of our Eyewitness, Top 10 and Like a Local guides. To claim your discount online, simply go to whsmith.co.uk, choose your book and enter the code Eyewitness20. And in any high street store, visit the link in our episode bio and show the QR code at the checkout. Offer excludes delivery costs, excludes stores at airports, railway stations, motorway service stations, hospitals, garden centres and workplaces, and books by WHSmith at Selfridges, Harrods, Phoenix and Arnott's. Full T's and C's available at whsmith.co.uk/terms. So, Monica, I know you said you're not that much of a history buff. That's fine. That's totally fine. But one exciting topic that we should touch on is the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum. Not open at the time of recording, but expected very, very soon. Will you be visiting?
Yes, definitely not a museum person. But so the Grand Egyptian Museum seems like it's going to be completely different and honestly, well worth visiting. So as of right now, it isn't open, but there are certain areas of it that have been open for like exclusive events and summits and galleries and what have you. So people have been given access to the grounds, but none of the actual artifacts or displays. Like there's no extensive King Tut collection just yet, but that's actually one of the really cool things to expect once it does open. But just so far, the outdoors area, the food area, gift shop, and some artifacts and displays like art displays here and there, just having experienced those, there honestly is something very grand about the experience. Just it's the way it's put together and the way that the space is curated. I'm a big fan of spaces. And so the way that the space itself is put together and curated, having attended a couple of events there, there's something incredibly captivating about it. And that's without any of the ancient history that in itself, going back to the word choice, is very humbling. And so the space as a whole and the curation of the space already makes it well worth visiting. And so all the more so once it does open up. And I know that there are also plans to connect it with the pyramid complex in some capacity. So it's just going to eventually become a very inclusive and very rounded experience of ancient Egyptian history in that space. And I think they're pulling off an incredible job of curating that experience.
Well, I don't think you could give a more glowing recommendation, seeing as, Monica, you're not a huge history and museum person.
I don't do history, I don't do museums, but I love the space. I loved it. I went for summits, but it was an incredible space. And it's good to have our history shown off, or our ancient history rather, shown off in a way that's well put together, that's well curated, that's welcoming, and that does do justice to the grand nature of ancient Egyptian history. We've got 7,000 years of history, and the ancient history is just, it's a lot.
I was going to say this because ancient Egyptian civilization is a much longer period than lots of people think it actually is.
About 7,000 years.
Yeah, I was reading the fact the other day that Cleopatra was closer to the invention of the iPhone than she was the building of the pyramids.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
That is correct.
It's quite the challenge to get 7,000 years of history into one building.
It's an undertaking, yeah.
Yeah, very, very excited to go and visit that. That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
So if visitors then are planning to come to Egypt and they're going to do the Grand Egyptian Museum, what time of year, Monica, would be a good time for them to come over?
Honestly, Egypt is a good year-round destination, depending on where you're going. So if you're in it for the beaches, you can essentially come in at any point during the year and you're going to love it. The Mediterranean coast, if you're heading in that direction, incredible during the summer. If you're heading to Luxor, Aswan, or Siwa, please do not come in the summer. For the love of all that is good and holy, you will scorch.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, peak time is actually fall and spring. So anytime between September, October, November, or February, March, April, and a bit of May is peak when it comes to weather, so that you can have a comfortable experience regardless of where you're going.
Great, good answer.
Sounds good.
And would you say sort of Egypt is a budget-friendly destination as well?
It can be if you want it to be.
Yeah.
One of the cool things is that you can have an incredibly luxurious experience And you can also have a very budget experience, and they'll both be good experiences depending on what you're looking for. So it definitely has the capacity to be very budget friendly.
Yeah, okay, good. That's good to hear. I think you're going to have a great answer for this, Monica, but this season we're exploring how listeners can support local communities when they're travelling. So what sorts of things can travellers think about when they visit Egypt?
I think when travelers are coming into Egypt, it can be almost intimidating to engage with local communities, just because you're walking into a space that you may not be familiar with on the ground, and there is quite a bit of chaos. And so plugging in may seem intimidating. However, honestly, the easiest way to do it is to book local, to engage with locals. So off the top of my head, like we were saying with the food tours.
Yes.
Bellies en route, these guys are locally owned and operated, and they are really big on giving back to their vendors and their suppliers and the community that works with them. So book local tours with local guides or with local companies. And that way you give back, but you also get to see what you're giving into as well. And you get to be part of that. So it's not just a financial thing, it's a people thing. And that also connects back to the Sinai Trail, the Red Sea Mountain Trail, and a lot of the Bedouin initiatives that are happening. These are operated fully by the local Bedouin communities where this is their livelihoods. So you get to plug into their worlds and their lives and what it looks like to live their life and to experience their culture in a very tangible way. And you're also benefiting them financially. So that's a really, really good way of doing it. But if you're not a hiker, if you're not a foodie, there are more practical things like, stay in eco lodges, stay in boutique hotels, don't run for the all-inclusive chain hotels. The boutique stuff is also safe. I think sometimes there's a fear of I'm going to a shady little boutique eco lodge. Do your due diligence, check.
Yep.
But there is a lot of benefit to staying in eco lodges and boutique hotels, and shop local. If you're in Sinai, if you're in Siwa, there are a lot of handicrafts, and these are made by locals, and they make for good souvenirs as well. So plugging into things like that, buying local in terms of crafts and stuff, especially in light of the current inflation. So that's a really good way to connect as well.
Very, very wise words there. And I think that is almost all we have time for today. But Monica, it was really wonderful to meet you.
Likewise.
Best of luck with the update of DK Witness Egypt as well.
It is an undertaking, and we're loving it. This country changes every 3 days.
It's been long overdue, an update for that book. And it's really exciting to see you working on it. And hopefully it'll have all of these recommendations plus even more.
Absolutely.
But it's so wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Monica.
Wasn't that brilliant, Lucy? Huge thanks to Monica.
Huge thanks. Seeing as Egypt has 7,000 years of history, a fact I just learned.
Yes.
But I thought she did a wonderful job of talking a bit about that history, but also, as we said at the beginning, of discussing the modern side, and she did it in a really articulate, eloquent, inspiring way, and talking about the people. We always love to hear about the people of destinations.
Absolutely. And I'll just point out 7,000 years of ancient history. So
ancient history, yes, my mistake. So big thank you to Monica. It was brilliant.
Yes, it was, I think, a really great sort of summary of a taster of what you can expect in Egypt. And it's made me really want to go, and I lit up that flame all over again. And you can follow Monica's work at www.monicagerges.com. That's GERGES.com. And where are we going next, Lucy?
Well, James, actually, we're staying very close to home. You and I are staying in London for a very special episode of Where to Go, which I'm super excited about. It's just going to be you and me, pal.
It's just going to be us. So, we thought, why don't we do a little special on London and sort of turn the microphone round about our sort of favourite sides of London. So, Lucy, have you been writing a list?
I have been writing my list, and I'm so excited, James, because I just know you're going to break your own rules and want to give multiple answers to the quickfire round. So I'm looking forward.
If there's ever any guests who've been on the podcast before, I'm really, really sorry. I'm definitely going to break those rules. And I know I've tried to be stringent before, but it's when it's myself, I probably can't help myself. And when it's London as well.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And that's what I'm learning. I'm learning it's really difficult. We put our guests in the hot seat to choose just one favourite thing to eat or favourite day activity. But I'm really looking forward to it, James. It will be a really great listen, I think.
I think it will. So come along for that. that in 2 weeks' time. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we shall see you very soon. Where to Go is a podcast from DK Eyewitness. It was produced by Julia Baker, presented by Lucy Richards and James Atkinson with the help of Bella Talbot. For more information about DK Eyewitness, follow us on social media at DK Eyewitness or visit dk.com/eyewitness. And please like and follow the show. And if you have time, leave a review. Your support means so much to us.